Good morning, Gab fam, or good afternoon. This is episode 6, and got some crazy stuff going on today. Today I voted number one. That's crazy part number one. You know, I stood in the line, I got out there, and I cast my vote against the deep state, against high taxes, and for someone who loves America, which was Donald Trump today. And in recent news, considering today, like 50 Cent endorsed Donald Trump. We got huge news, and
Wild news. Wild news. Breaking
Brian's
right
going to
now.
talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, it just what I love is that it's just some random hip hop blog that I just saw post about it, and so I'm glad that they're gonna get all the traffic from that for being on it. But then also what this just shows is that people. It specifically said in the headline said after reading Joe Biden's tax plan.
Yeah,
and I just love that because it just comes down to it is the money. It's the money. Keep it simple, stupid. It's the economy.
Incentives matter, and these politicians are a lot of these politicians are basically ignoring what the people really want completely, or what is just basic respect to the people that they are supposed to be representing. This is the whole
absolutely, and they try to make it so complicated with all this other stuff. Like Joe, just to get a little bit partisan, and honestly, Republicans do it too. The Democrats and Republicans both make everything so complicated, and they just try to talk about this and that and all this stuff. It's literally what the country wants right now is economic populism. Yeah. Money back to the people, power to the people. Andrew Yang, Bernie Sanders, AOC, that has momentum right now. But the problem is that the Democrats don't know how to implement that. But honestly, the Republicans don't either, and that's what's so frustrating. But the wrong thing to do is say you're going to jack up capital gains tax a lot. Because people think that, jacking up capital gains tax is we're sticking it to the rich people or whatever. You're not going to stick it to the rich people. The government physically cannot stick it to the rich people. It's because they're rich. That's how it works. You're able to get away with, you're able to go around anything. The government is not ever going to be able to duct tape and glue shut all these holes and all this stuff because it's too far gone. It's too far gone. The system's too far gone. The rich people are always going to find a way around it. So the only
raising
solution,
taxes at all, just after they've printed such an abundance of $3 trillion this year, raising taxes at all to kind of say we're gonna start on this impossible amount of debt. We're gonna start paying it now with all of your more taxes that you didn't want this $3 trillion worth of spending that didn't help you at all. You didn't want that, but we're gonna increase your taxes
trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, and we each only got $1,200. Doesn't work. That doesn't make any sense. That math does not make sense. They printed enough money that we could, get out our calculator or whatever, but it could have been 5 figures easy to every single person in the United States. But instead it gets divvied up into all these weird piles of the airlines get this, the corporations get this, the PPP loans get this, we have to, bail out, the Illinois pension plan and the California pension plan, all this random stuff. It doesn't work for anybody anymore. That's what 50 Cent's saying.
Yeah, I've got to agree completely. 50 Cent, even if it's just the taxes, but I'm sure it's more than that, But the stimulus and stuff, for PPPs, I know a couple of business owners that said that they went and applied for the PPP thing and it never went through. And then I met a guy who said, he's got a dance production company here in Vegas, and he said that he met a lady who worked in the government and was working in the office that approves PPPs, and she was going around and charging 10% cut of the loan that they get or the grant that they get, and because you can choose a loan or a grant, just as another thing. So they were getting $10,000 if they chose the grant, or the loan was proportional to the size of their business. So, but this lady was taking 10% cut so that she would fill out your paperwork and file it behind the scenes. Because if you were filling out online, it just gets put into a big pile of these, government workers like get to choose the 1,000 people that they work on today. Like, so just complete fraud happening behind the scenes. And you have to know someone to get your Yeezy production supply approved for the PPP loan, and that's just the shitty world we're living in right now. Instead of being fair about the money, there's always this social hierarchy that they're playing games with, disrespecting.
They're never going to be able to change it. They're never going to be able to change it because that's the nature of politics. Like when there's people in power, then people that are friends with those that are in power are always going to get more favorable treatment. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
We're never going to be able to elect like a noble enough politician or like a good enough or whatever more. Like it doesn't work like that. Like power is corrupting. Like, and everybody knows this, but then it's like we all get little like goosebumps for democracy or whatever and think that like our guy is gonna like change it. And I saw a post the other day that said like your vote is like it's a chess move. Like it's not a Valentine. Like you're not sending a Valentine to like who you vote for. It's like a chess move. And I agree with that.
It feels like a pawn though. It feels like a pawn out of a chess move. Like it's like I was standing in that line, and honestly, I'm excited to say that I voted on Gab, but when I was standing in that line, I'm not that excited to be voting this year compared to 4 years ago, because I know, first of all, there's a high likelihood that my vote doesn't even fucking count because there's rigged voting machines, there's rampant illegal immigrant voting like that happened in 2016, and they were busting around people. There's rampant voter fraud. In Nevada, they just removed a voter law where like if you were dropping off 50 mail-in ballots or more, you used to have to sign in for ID. Now you do not have to present your ID to drop off 50 or more ballots. So like that's just fraudulent. It's just absolutely fraudulent. You should have to have your ID for one ballot. But now we're talking to have 50, you don't have to have anything. You can just drop 50 off right there. And then if you're on the computer side of the thing, they are checking IDs. So I think the whole like Democrat versus Republican, Democrats are all doing mail-in ballots this year, and Trump supporters are all like voting at the machines because they know that the mail-in ballot system is kind of fucked and people might be throwing Trump supporting ballots into the trash. Well, I actually had to give my ID for the computer ballot thing, but I wouldn't have had to if I dropped off mail-in ballots at the box. They were just taking mail-in ballots and stuffing them in the box. So it's like, and personally, I've gotten all the mail-in ballots for the people who previously lived at my home, but I did not get my own mail-in ballot. So I couldn't even do it if I wanted to. And I just feel like it's all corrupt. So I don't know if my vote even count. It kind of was shitty to stand in the line today. But I will say, I am extremely excited when I buy a little bit of Bitcoin because you can audit that vote. You can audit that vote. Like, I got my sats. I know they're really there. I know that I have access to them because I got my node. I can verify, trust, and verify. And then versus trust and pretty much know that you're going to get screwed over in one way or another. And even if my candidate of choice wins, I'm getting screwed over in one way or another because I don't agree with everything that happens with them. Whereas, when you're fixing the money, you get to choose exactly what you spend your money on. And with unconfiscatable money, you can't have someone choose it for you. They need your permission. Beautiful.
Like, we're focused on solutions here at the Daily Gab. That's what we're focused on. And so whenever you hear us kind of talking about politics, talking about 50 Cent, talking about all of this stuff, we're going to pivot and we're going to tell you the way that you can stay focused on solutions, because this is not just a complaining show. Like, there's plenty of other people. You can tune into that anywhere you want. You can tune into rah-rah and complaining anywhere else. And but we're here to make what's for some of you going to be a hard pivot into getting over these mental barriers of realizing that the system can't fix itself. we can't vote in the change that is required at the level that we need the change. And the reason is because the politicians don't even run the country anymore. The government employees do, and bureaucrats do, and the deep state does. And you know that on Gab here better than anybody. And when we say the deep state, like literally just lifelong government employees, like they have more influence. And exactly the PPP loan story that like Sterling just said, like those bureaucrats that are signing the checks and making that happen, they have the power to shift who's in the line. And so it doesn't matter if you have the sickest new.
They take a cut, you know, it's disrespectful.
Like here, you elect the sickest new, coolest congressperson in Texas 47. Sweet. What is that person going to do to change the government employee dictator who sits at the head of some agency line that keeps, you know, the IRS keeps auditing poor people? Like, what is Mr. like cool guy or Mr. cool like conservative like woman from Texas 47 going to do about the bureaucrat that runs IRS? Like they can't do anything. And that's the reason why we as Americans like need to take power into our own hands and take it back from the federal government, and us having our own free market money that we can audit with. Like Sterling runs a Raspberry Pi. It's the smallest computer that you can get.
It's for, like you can get a Raspberry Pi for $100 or less.
Like, $100, a $100 computer, $100 computer. Can audit the total supply and know the addresses, know the balance of all the Bitcoin available. The Federal Reserve cannot do that. Like, and that's where it all stems from. The salaries of these government employees come from like central planning money. So we need to dismantle that at the whole level. So in the same way that, you know, 50 Cent is kind of tackling some like just crazy kind of mental models that he never thought he would be, you know, going down to preserve his wealth today, and pulling the trigger for a guy that is not his favorite guy in order to protect his family's wealth. You know, like if he's listening and if anyone else is listening that's in that situation, switch to Bitcoin. Like switch to Bitcoin and you're able to make a bigger statement and protect the wealth of your family even better than, you know, having to vote like for either candidate. And so
and do both. Do what you believe in. Do what you believe in, anything that's making a change in the right direction, because that's what it's all about, is taking action. Like, and personally, me and Brian obviously think that Bitcoin is the strongest action that we can take, because it's so protected by the technological innovation. You're so protected by the extreme power that it gives to any individual. And but really, like all this stuff is just moving in the right direction. Go ahead, man.
Combining both together would be awesome. Like, I'm being a little bit of a downer on politics today, but I'm involved in politics. Like, I'm elected to the Orange County Republican Party like Central Committee. You know, I am focused on like teaching the Congress men and women that I have access to about Bitcoin. Like, and I hope, look, if Trump gets another 4 years, I really hope that, I don't think anyone else has the balls to stick it to the deep state and stick it to the Fed at the level that we need to. And so I really hope that a lot of you that are still super gung-ho like about him, I really hope you can get his ear and get him to realize that we need to, you know, end the Fed. Like, and not as just an empty statement, like not as just like, oh man, Ron Paul was so cool, like he had it right, like all this stuff. No, honestly, seriously, I don't understand. Like, I can't understand what else we're focused on. We need economic populism. We need 100%. Economic populism.
We need to end the Fed. We need to let failing businesses fail and be bought up by cash holders who are smart. We need to really, really, really let incentives run the market, because it's all this manipulation. You know, it's one central planner after another, thinking that they know what everyone's wants and needs are, and often acting just out of selfishness. But the end result has just been so bad over the last 50 years. Like, WTF happened in 71, you know? Like, but yeah, guys, if you guys are listening,
some Bitcoin,
exciting news. Get some Bitcoin, go out there and do your whatever actions you can take. to peacefully protest in actual ways that matter. You don't have to go out to the street and put anybody's life at risk, or you know really be combative at all. We're moving in a much more peaceful direction, and that's why it's always exciting. But we'll see you guys on the next one.